this is page 44. This is showing you the tricky problems. We had already talked about the tricky pictures when they're touching. There's probably some secret info not marked that needs to be marked. A lot of these we've already practiced, but there's some new ones on here. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, one of these we've practiced. There's some new ones on here that we've not seen before, and so I wanted to show them to you because you never know. We have practiced a shared side. They're calling it a common side. Our shared side scenarios has been more like number 3. If you look at number 3, this is a shared side. And we said that when you have a shared side, you can go in and mark it congruent to itself. If you go back to the top of your paper where it says common side, this picture looks different. So let me explain what's happened here. Basically, imagine if, as I'm holding my hands out like this, imagine if this was connected here. I'll do that. Like, you see this triangle with my hands? Okay, and then imagine over here I have the same thing. You ready? So, those two triangles, you're imagining these are closed. They're overlapping. It's hard to do. They're sharing a side. You see where my thumbs merge and they're lining up? They're sharing a side. So if you gotta imagine if I was to pull these apart, there's not a lot of room, so I'll just draw it over here. So like if I pulled this triangle to the left, it would be A, E, D, and if I pulled that triangle to the right, it would be C, E, D. What side do they both have? They both have ED in common. ED, ED. All right, so this is the shared side right here. So it's congruent to itself. It says, what's the common side? We would say ED. We've not had a picture like that before, so that's the first time we've seen that. Now, this over here, we've not had before either, where they have an angle in common. I want you to focus your eyes on triangle MPS, and then triangle MRN. If I pull those apart, what angle would both of them have? And M, very good. And if you look up here at the congruence statement, you can even see like there's angle M. So they definitely have this angle in common. And I would have to put a single congruent mark on it that's not repeated anywhere else because it's angle M is duplicated, right? So what's the common angle? It'd be angle M. This is shared angle. Because if I pull those two triangles apart, that angle would get repeated. So coming down here, let's look at 1, 2, and 3. It says identify the common side or angle in each set. We have two means of doing this. We have looking at the picture, then we also have our congruence statement, okay? So like jumping to number 3, we said that this is the shared side. Coming up here to the congruence statement, do I see the letters AC in both congruent triangles? Yes. So the shared side here would be AC. Coming over here to number 1, do we have a shared side or a shared angle? Number 1, which one does it look like? It's a shared angle. Now you have to imagine what angle is it, or you can look at your congruent statement and see what letter got repeated. H. So this right here is the shared angle. Angle H is shared. Number 2, is that a shared side or shared angle? Side. That's like the example I showed with my hands where the thumbs overlap. The shared side is right here. So VZ is our shared side. Four, 5, and 6, name a pair of congruent triangles in each figure below, and then tell the theorem or postulate you would use. So they're saying what shortcut. We had 5 shortcuts. They're asking for you to identify the congruent triangles and then say what shortcut. So number 4, is there secret info not marked that I need to mark? Which one? There's a shared side. How many tick marks would I put on it though? I need to put 2 because I've already got a single tick mark here and here. Now, if reading this when they're overlapped is confusing, then draw them separately. Okay? We've got this triangle, and then we've got this triangle, and we're going to imagine pulling them apart. So this triangle, trace your eyes around it carefully, would be what? What letter would go here? D, E, H. And I'm going to copy the congruence mark. I had a single here, I had an arc here, and then I had a double there. Now come over here. What would this be? D, E, F. Copy the congruence marks. And then now let's name what triangle is congruent to what. Now I'll name the first one, y'all name the second one. So if I call the first one D, E, H, you have to be careful here. You might think it would be D, E, F, but watch your congruence marks. I went D, E, H. So I went congruent angle, 2 tick marks down the side that's blank. So over here you got to do congruent angle, 2 tick marks down the side that's blank. So what would this one be? This would be EDF. Now what's our shortcut that we could use? Go back to your picture, look at your markings. We got side, 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 angle, angle, side, hypotenuse, leg. This would be a side, angle, side problem. By side, angle, side. All right, I want you to try 5 and 6. Number 5. Did I hear both? So when you're looking at it, they do have sides in common. If you think about it, like they have QR is both in this triangle on the left, but then it's also in the triangle on the right. But as far as being able to mark it congruent to itself,
would you please send Daryl Moore to the office for a moment?
He's on the way.
Thank you.
The angle in the top right here, this angle would get repeated between the 2 triangles. So that's the one that they have in common. If you needed to, you can draw these separate. You've got this triangle, 2, and then that was the congruent mark, and then this was a congruent angle. And then over here, you got the double, the congruent, and then the congruent. So, how did you name the first triangle? Like, what would this letter be? P. What would this letter be? R. Be careful here. S. And then this triangle right here, what would this letter be? T. What'd you say? R. And then Q. So if I call this one P, R, S, so P, R, S would be blank side to the 2 arcs and down the 1 tick mark. So what would this one be? TRQ. What would the shortcut be? Angle, side angle. Number 6, what do they have in common? They have a shared side in common. I'll put 2 tick marks on it. So if I name the first triangle, let's call it KJN. If I call it KJN, I went 1 tick mark to 2 tick marks. What would I have to name the other one? If I go KJN, MNJ, very good. And then what's the shortcut? Yeah, this one's tricky. You first look at it, you probably think side angle, but that's that.
Could you please send down Caleb Fowler to the main office for dismissal, please?
He's on the way.
Thank you.
But side angle would be that reverse of the bad word that we're not going to say, right? So this is actually a right triangle, and if you draw the arrow to the side opposite, it's that shared side. So this is an HL shortcut. Now, what I'd like you to do is, and I really, really would love to see you do this, is turn to a neighbor and compare answers on the back. The back was 12 practice problems that you were supposed to do the other day. Compare answers. If I had to say what was the most challenging, I would say it was number 5 or 12. 5 or 12. I'm actually going to work 5 with you because I think several people might have gotten it wrong because they forgot what the triangles mean. Is this it? Let's try this. Alright, number 5. Those triangles are not congruent marks. Those are parallel marks. So what it means is, I'll switch to a highlighter that you can see. You've got parallel lines cut by a transversal. Remember that? And then every time you have parallel lines cut by a transversal, all those fancy angles come into play. Well, in this case, we have a closed figure. So we actually have alternate interior angles. This corner here would be congruent to this corner here. And then we have the same scenario if we jump to the other parallel lines. Parallel lines cut by a transversal. We would have congruent angles here and here. So this particular problem was challenging because you had to remember those are parallel lines, that's a transversal, and then these would be my congruent angles. And then what is not marked in the picture that should be marked? There's a shared side right here in the middle. So do we have enough info for those triangles to be congruent? Yes, what shortcut? angle, side angle. If you were to highlight the side that's congruent, you should notice that it's touching both of the angles, which tells us it's angle, side angle. You will have more parallel lines cut by transversals right here in number 12. So now that I've given you that tip, maybe you can go to 12 and fix it if you messed up. But I would like you to compare your answers with a neighbor. The first 9 problems, you were just simply saying yes or no, and by what shortcut. And then the bottom 3 problems, you finished the congruence statement and you said by what shortcut. So talk to a neighbor and check your answers with your neighbor on those.